Hello everybody and welcome to another one of our training videos. On this occasion we're going to talk about risk taking or taking risks. You see, as a leader it's really important to not only understand the value and importance of risk taking, but also the rewards and consequences of taking a risk. Equally, in between that, you need to recognize that if you don't take any risks, how can you move forward? How can you grow? How can you develop your teams? How can you grow your business? Now, you may be one of those that says, well, I don't know how to manage risk. Well, the first thing to do is to understand one fundamental aspect of risk. Risk is all about the fact that you engage in a project, decision, direction, where you realize and recognize that you don't have all the answers. There is a risk of failure. There is a risk of not succeeding. You don't have a 100% guarantee. That is the nature of risk. Risk is about going forward and doing something without having the absolute certainty that whatever you do is going to perform. It may be a risk which is financial. It could be economic. It could be reputational, it could be strategic, and many other things as well. So we're going to spend a few minutes just talking about risk and risk taking. Firstly, my name is Igwe. I have over 35 years experience of creating, growing and leading teams across 5 countries and indeed across Europe, Middle East and Africa. And what I do each time in these videos is just share a little bit of my experience of what leadership elements are and how important they are. So if, once you've heard this, you like what you hear, please comment, share, and of course subscribe to this channel so you follow what other videos are coming out as well. So risk taking. Let me give you a very quick example. Let's assume that as a leader, you're about to complete a process of hiring somebody new into your team, your department, your company. The problem that you have is you say to yourself, that person who you'd like to hire, who's gone through this process, seems to be the best person for the job. However, he or she also has the highest current salary wherever they are, whatever company they're in, which is beyond the budget that you set for hiring in that position. The question you ask yourself, of course, is if I hire that person in and he or she does not succeed, what then? Absolutely key, crucial and valuable question. And that goes through a whole series of things that you have to review. But think about it. Let's assume that this person is indeed the best, most qualified person for the role and will definitely take your business or your company to where you want it to go. Can you afford not to hire that person? That's a risk. Can you afford not to hire that person in time before he or she is given another job at another company? I'm sure you've heard the expression, ships are safe in harbour, but that is not what ships were built for. You see, if you are a leader, you cannot allow your leadership to sit in harbour, safe and away from the storms of sea. That's not what the ship was built for, and that is not what your leadership is all about. Think of many of the great leaders, and you can think of many, but let's come up with a few. Elon Musk of Tesla, Jeff Bezos of Amazon, Sir Richard Branson of Virgin Airlines, or even Sir James Dyson of the famed Dyson brand, inventor and entrepreneur. They've all had huge successes as well as huge failures, both personal, financial, corporate, whatever. In a sense, the bigger the risk, the bigger the gain. So you have to look at it in that way. But let's bring it back to our level. So as we look at risk, I thought I'd break it down into areas which hopefully you'll be able to understand. So on the one hand, we're going to talk about risk taking. But then these are the components that I think you need to address in terms of how to grow your risk taking abilities. These two here, decide and remove fear, are essentially in your mind. They're inner, they're inward. It's what you need to do before you can face the outside world. So let's talk about them. The first one is decide. It is so important that you make a conscious decision, a choice to take risk. Now, I don't know where you are on the barometer of risk taking, but you may decide, I don't want to be too risky. That's okay, that's not for me to judge. But you have to ask yourself, the more comfortable you get with making a conscious decision, which is mental, which is improving your mental toughness to say, I want to take this risk because I know the reward on the other side is greater than the risk itself I'm taking. Besides which, you cannot grow as a leader if you don't take risks. So decide today, my choice is to take more risk. The second is to remove fear. You see, we're all beings that are affected by fear, that fight or flight instinct that is part of our core nature. But you have to remove any fear of the unknown, or minimize it if you like. Because if you don't, that fear is going to consume you, it's going to overcome you, and you'll never take risks. You'll never make a conscious decision to move forward. So you need to remove fear. Take that away. Imagine the success on the other side. The jubilation, the excitement, the fact that you hired that person in, took that risk, but that person worked out and helped your business to grow. See the other side of that negative barrier. So these two, like I say, are inside you. Those are internal. But then you've got an external piece, which is equally very important. And I've broken them down into their very basic form. Assess. Whenever you take a risk, I'm not saying blind risk. When you do so, you assess with information, with data, with market studies, with strategic insights, with knowledge, information gathering, verbal or written. You do your assessment, figure out as much as you possibly can, which will inform the decision that you're going to take. So you do your best to minimize the risk. The idea here is not about being cavalier, it's about being controlled in your process. So assess the risk, engage in the risk, and whatever happens afterwards, you come back and you review. Now, by review, I mean two things. One is you review internally. So was the level of success that you got a direct and proportional aspect in relation to the decision? In other words, you took a big decision, you moved forward, you eliminated fear, you felt, I'm going to do this in whatever form. Once you do that, it'll propel you even further forward. So in that review process, you review internally. How did you face it? How did you assess it? What succeeded? What worked? What didn't? The fear, did it continue all the time or did you break it down? And then of course, you review how it turned out. How did that choice or that decision that you made bring you the value that you wanted? You see, as a leader, you have to take risks on a permanent basis. It's got to be part of your modus operandi. You've got to be able to take risks all the time. I've taken risks all my life and all my career. When I was phoned by a headhunter, when I was at the prime of my civil engineering career, I was playing with the big boys, playing in the big league, really well connected, great network. Headhunter called me an opportunity to move to a well-known international retail brand. I didn't know anything about retail. I didn't know anything about retail real estate. But instinctively, I went through this process exactly the same way, with other pieces, but there's not enough time to go through it. And I came up with a decision that I would move. I started literally at the ground floor. I knew nothing about that business, knew nothing about that brand and that industry. I moved from Switzerland to the Netherlands with my family, my wife being pregnant again, the whole thing. We went for it. I took a big risk, and thankfully today I'm one of the global leaders in the retail real estate industry. What risks are you going to take to propel yourself and your business and your team to a whole new level? The bigger the risk, the bigger the reward. Like all of us who do sports at some level, whether competitive or otherwise, you know, no pain, no gain. You have to put the energy, the time, the training, the effort into it. And all those things come through this. You train yourself to decide better. You train yourself to remove fear. You train yourself to have more analytical experience and knowledge of how to assess the risk. And then you come back with a full review and assessment, which may be painful. Maybe you've made mistakes. Quite frankly, you have to make mistakes, because if you don't make mistakes, you're not growing. So I hope that these very short principles and ideas about risk-taking resonate with you. If they do, please like, comment and share, and subscribe to the channel so you know about future videos that are coming out. Thank you.